a lot has gone down since we have last been on the platforms.
What about the billions of people that have no chance for any health care at all? Many of them, if not most of them, brown and black.
We must question the true felt impact for the average black person in Canada.
What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations. 2018 Innovation Award winner, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And being part of that team, we've reached out directly and indirectly to over 400,000 dads, fathers, and male caregivers around the world. As always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. And it is Sunday afternoon, a little bit after 5 p.m., and we are here with Black Canada Talking, where Black Canadians give their POVs, takes, insights on local, municipal, provincial, countrywide, Canada, and international news events. As always, he is here. A little bit delayed today, but he is here. Cesar Ndema-Moussa. What is up, Cesar? How you doing?
Dr. Vibe, brothers and sisters and allies, thank you always for having me. I'm okay, thank you. My apologies for being late. I was in the meeting, and part of that meeting conversation will be here in our conversation regarding the Canadian elections. So yes.
Okay, so you're hot off the. So what else has been going on before you came on? Like before that? Okay.
Well, just it's a busy weekend. Weekend spent with family. Good. Also, a weekend of it's something that should be normalized, but just a reminder to brothers and also to sisters, to be there for one another in the relationships as full members of the couple, aka helping to the house chores, helping notably with the kids. The term is not babysitting, but I was at home with the young children while my wife went to the gym. So because it's good also for brothers as sisters. And when she came back, I went to the gym.
Very nice.
And on top of that, yes. And on top of that, I was having a conversation regarding, religion and the place of women and Blackness with one of my mentees that I want to honor really on becoming a doctor.
Whoa,
she had she had a challenging she surmounted many challenges, and statistically let's just say the odds were very much against her. But the importance of mentorship, the importance of being of a big brother, not just some type of distant mentor. They're being there to accompany our younger Black people dealing not only with the challenges of academia and professionalism, but also with identity. And she has become a doctor. So nice. First one in her family, but truly, I'm just 30 years old, by the way, just 30 years old.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You've had the opportunity and blessing to have a positive impact on many younger people. I guess let's just focus today on younger people's lives. How do you feel when you see moments or encounter moments like you did today with that mentee? How does that make you feel?
Well, let's put it this way. This year, 2025, two of my mentees become doctors, one in Canada, one in the United States. So it is quite an honor because I like to think they would have succeeded without me. It's not about me. It's about them. When I say about them, it's about having someone in your corner that can be there to support you and to tell you, yes, you can. So the impact, when you ask in terms of the question, this is a continuation of, as I often point out to example, the image behind me of great Black leaders. It's we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and we are also responsible for crafting the giants of the next generation. We
Mhm.
all have to do our part. When Dr. Vibe, you yourself, as part of your intro, you talk about, Black fathers, Black men, but you also talk about community, the sense of family, uh, offering a platform for exchanges, and notably to address topics that speak to a community, and notably to have younger staff coming in to learn what it's like to work in media. This is all part of that mentorship. This is all part of that alternative that too often our young Black people, but even older Black people, they don't grow up to see as a normal outside of entertainment, crime, poverty, sexual exploitation. They don't see striving and successful Black people, Black women, and Black men, young and old, who pass to them the baton tips, uh, you know, mindset. I often say my triple A: adjust, adapt, to advance. Adjust to adapt to advance. It's a mindset thing. It's a mindset beyond. I don't like that term for Black people. We often hear about resilience. Resilience is attached to Blackness as slavery and colonization and racism. I want us to go further than that. Adjust to adapt to advance and pass it on. Pass it on to the next ones. I wouldn't be here without my father.
Mhm.
I also wouldn't be here without Dr. Vibe.
Wow.
You would be, well, of course. Well, let's be honest. It would be so. Listen, Dr. Vibe, let me be honest right now. What would I be doing if I wasn't here with you right now? I'd be watching France versus Croatia playing right. I'm being honest. The
Oh,
first
okay.
and at 6 p.m. I will be watching Canada versus USA. But
Yes, yes,
but
yes.
you see what I mean? But it is the sense that something of value makes you feel valued. And when it is positive, but also when it's negative, you pass it on. Kind of that expression, um, you feed or you sow what you feed. One of those expressions.
You reap what you sow. You sow what
You
you reap what you sow, or you sow what you reap. I think it's you reap what you sow. I think reaping comes after the sowing. So you reap what you sow.
There you go. So it is that kind of that kind of mindset that, as a realist, because I'm neither a positivist, not a pessimist, and definitely not an idealist, but as a realist, I remind our Black people, it is not just a matter of talking about the struggle and surviving. It is about being able to look at us in the present with knowledge of the past and framing ourselves to create a better future. All of my heroes, Cheikh Anta Diop, Frantz Fanon, our great Black leaders above me, just as so many of our great Black women leaders and even young leaders. In my presentation and conferences, I always talk about a young Black leader so few people know about. Nkosi Johnson, Nkosi, Nkosi Johnson from South Africa, HIV activist who died at just 12 years old. But he changed the mindset of Madiba, Nelson Mandela, regarding HIV not being a gay disease, which led to saving so many people in South Africa. It is what I mean by the passing of the baton. I cannot be here being Cesar, talking about our great Black heroes of the past, talking about the current issues, projecting on better Black communities and a better Africa and Caribbean nations and global Black nation, as reminding our people of the fate of Black people, example in India, and not be there as a positive influence to our young and vulnerable people, just as to our adult people. very quickly, let me recount something that happened. I think it was beginning of the year 2023, I believe. Beginning of the year 2023, yes. I gave a presentation to public servants in a small, very white town. Very white. You know, those type of places, the new black person boosts, by 100%. And as I was in the parking lot about to leave after the presentation, I see these black men with two children getting closer and closer. Clearly, he was coming towards me. Mr. Cesar, surprise. Small white town. This brother remembered me from, I'm going to say 2017, maybe 2018 in Montreal when I gave a conference. And what did he tell me? He said, I was so offended by the things you were talking about regarding religion and the black community, but I pushed myself to do some research. Thank you. You changed my life. I mean, I am paraphrasing the conversation we had, but basically he talked about changing his life and changing the life of his daughters because he was able to see he was brainwashed. He was racially and religiously indoctrinated. And thus, he is saving his daughters from that religious and racial indoctrination. That's the impact. That's the influence.
Excellent. Well, your number one fan is in the house, Michelle Baptiste.
Hello,
Says,
Michelle.
good evening, gentlemen. I hope that all is well with you both. They are. And on that note, we're going to go to a little bit of a quick break and we're going to talk about some hot stories. One that just came off the press this morning. Not a big surprise, but predictable, but going to be very interesting times, even more so in Canada for the next few weeks. So we'll be back in the next 30 seconds. Aisha K. Staggers and Laura Lala Key are in the house. What is up?
The thing that Democrats should take away from the loss isn't what Harris did wrong so much, so it's what they did wrong.
And I'm going to tell you right now, we are the ones who are going to have to save our own selves. Don't be looking for some white man to come and save you.
The people who created the phrase "stay woke" are like woke ideology. We would have never put those together. And then what is that ideology? Oh, you mean differences? Oh, you mean people who aren't like you?
All right. You catch it Saturday afternoons, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lala, where two African American queens try to make sense out of the nonsense that's going on in their country, America. As always, little housework. Please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. Also like the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms that I'm a part of. Email me dr.vibe at the dr.vibeshow.com. Also, Indie Soup TV, run by our good friend Dr. Tachi. Independent content creators platform on YouTube, been around for about 9 months. Excuse me. And has over 25,000 subscribers in 9 months. Why is that of importance? Well, realize that only 4% of all YouTube channels in the world have over 10,000 subscribers. So we're very happy to have content like this on her platform. And finally, if you want to get a hold of Cesar, email president@Roots and Culture Canada and Facebook Cesar Remy Emery. Let's go to our first story. It wasn't a big surprise, but the federal election is ready to go. Cesar, your thoughts?
I think it's a very important. Every election is important, of course. This election, far more than most, to be quite honest, in the context not just of Donald Trump, but really after 3 mandates of Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, but also when we talk about inflation, when we talk about the cost of living and the questions regarding, our younger generations going to be living as well as previous generations, or basically is going to be further and further more challenging to remain in the middle class, etc., etc. And notably, of course, the question of housing and housing, quality of life, childcare, etc. However, before I begin, and this is notably part of the conversation, the meeting that I was in, because I don't want to forget this. I want to talk about a topic that the media are not talking much. Controversial topic for many. I'm not here talking about Mark Carney, financial conflict of interest, as some would say. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the removal of Nepean MP Chandra Arya to be given the spot to Mark Carney, who is a non-elected politician. The reason I think it's important to talk about it is, first and foremost, I want to pay tribute to Chandra Arya. Chandra Arya has been a supporter of the Black community. I'm not saying this because anyone asked me to say this. I can easily see people thinking like, "Oh, Chandra Arya, that doesn't sound African or Caribbean as a name." No, Chandra Arya is a Canadian MP of Indian origin, born in India, if I'm correct as well. However, Chandra Arya has been not just a supporter of the Black community, but I myself, Cesar Ndema-Moussa, president of Roots and Culture Canada, Chandra Arya has been a supporter of us since the very start, which were in his writing. And to me, as to many other Black leaders, without needing to give names, so I speak to my own name, I find it quite disingenuous and dangerous, to be honest, for the Liberal Party to remove a sitting MP who has been there for, if I'm not mistaken, 10 years, 3 consecutive elections, aka he has been there as long as Trudeau has been there, to simply remove him, to give the spot to Mr. Carney, who, sure, we can wish him all the success he needs, but Mr. Carney is unknown in the community. Chandra Arya is not just supported by the Black community in Nepean. He's Indian, the Indian community, but he also has Chinese and white supporting him. And for those who do not know, and it's no one's fault not to know this, Nepean used to be a conservative riding. Ottawa federal politics were, as you go, as where Nepean is, the further conservative it is, the further east you go, as in Orleans where I live, the more liberal it is. So Chandra has turned a traditionally conservative riding to liberal, overwhelmingly thanks to multicultural, multiracial, multi-ethnic voting. So for the Liberal to do such a move in such a close election, in a society that speaks more and more of EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusivity, and the party that has come forth in its claim, and notably its funding, no matter how we can feel about it, of multiculturalism, it is a dangerous move. It's a dangerous move in the greater conversation of things. Media are not talking about it. It may seem insignificant, but it's a dangerous move in a close election in which, yes, the Liberals have come back from a 25 to 30 point deficit, notably due to Trump's tariff war against Canada. But in this close election where many pollsters, I'm thinking Leger, Nanos, and I think Angus Reid, are either putting Liberals and Conservative neck to neck, and some are putting the Liberals by 0.5 to 1% above, but also in terms of writing, that Liberals at this moment might be having a majority of ridings. In such a close election, can you really afford to anger a community, basically anger communities, putting an MP that is greatly loved, who has been present, who has been on the ground for years. Many people would have expected me to be talking about regarding Canada going to the polls. But if we don't talk about this, are we Black Canada talking? Because this MP has a lot of support. I am telling you myself. I have the letters here of how do you call that? New Year's holiday well wishes from Chandra Arya. And I no longer live in Nepin. I no longer live in his writing. So I find that this very much illustrates, the less official conversation regarding these elections. This also illustrates what to me is the public image of Canada versus the reality that's lived and felt by many between the postcard and the reality of discrimination, racism, favoritism, which can truly hurt the Liberal Party. A Liberal Party which has to be very careful to take for granted Black votes, but also votes of other communities. When we look, for example, the Conservative, at the provincial, it's very clear to see. For the Conservative have multicultural vote more than the Liberals. Doug Ford winning again. So at the federal level, the Liberals must not take for granted the so-called ethnic vote, especially in regards to an MP as Chandra Arya, because this election is crucial. It's not just an election in terms of who will be the next prime minister, but we're talking about who will be the Canadian representative to stand up to Donald Trump, to shift Canadian great dependence to America. And we cannot be hinging on such petty politics. Because what? Chandra did come forward wanting to become prime minister and he doesn't speak French? I'm from France. I don't hold it against him. Why would I hold it against him? You see what I mean? So I think for these elections coming, April 28th, I, among many, will notably be paying attention to what happens in Nepin. Because yes, Mark Carney, our current prime minister, and maybe he might win. It's great that he's in Nepin, but not at any cost. Never at the cost of disrespect. The Liberal Party should honor Mr. Arya for his 10 years of good service. Hopefully, truly hopefully, Mr. Arya endorsed Mark Carney, but the Liberal Party, in that honoring, must not be by words, concrete actions, especially if they come back to power. Mr. Arya has been a good soldier, has been a good representative of that Canada that we like to see. An Indian man supported by the Black community, supported by, yes, his Indian community, but supported also by Chinese, by whites, etc., etc. This is the Canada we want to see.
Excellent. No, that's good. And I just want to shout out if you are watching, not everyone, if you are watching this conversation live on the Dr. Vibe YouTube channel, would love to get your takes on what are your thoughts on the upcoming election, which is now happening on April 28th. We've got a word share here. What are your thoughts about the upcoming Canadian election? So type it in the chat on YouTube on the Dr. Vibe Show, press enter, and we'll get some of your thoughts as people share them out. Cesar, we know the major focus on this election is going to be 47 and his trade tariffs. In your thoughts, will this overshadow other important issues that need to be discussed?
Unfortunately, yes. I think it will overshadow, but it will depend on the politicians. The reason I say that I think it will is because Donald Trump is such a rallying point. You have very few people who are in the middle regarding Donald Trump. You either dislike to hate him or like to love him type of person. We are in Canada where you can find Canadians with red Make America Great Again hats. I want to think there will be much less of them, as notably Canada Strong and what's that thing? Something elbows up has been rising. Canadian pride, Canadian nationalism, patriotism has been rising, and that's a good thing. I've had the honor of representing Canada in three different fields, as I've said before, in martial arts, in academia, and as I will be returning again uh, uh, April 14th at the United Nations for the third year in a row. However, we must look at it in terms of beyond Donald Trump, the housing crisis that's beyond Donald Trump. I mean, tariffs and yes, the cost of housing and renting will go up, yes. But the housing crisis was there before Donald Trump. We have a mental health crisis. We have a drugs crisis. I saw just yesterday a video of organized crime shoplifting in a Shoppers Drug Mart in Barhaven in front of bystanders recording. We have a problem of safety. And by safety, I am not here advocating for an increase of police budget. No. I am advocating for an increase of funding to social services, notably mental health, for the Black community. I gave an interview podcast to the University of Ottawa in which I was notably talking about where is the Black Community Center in Ottawa? Where is it? Other communities have the Black community centers. The excuse, blame, we should say, to the Black community of being better organized is relative to the fact that the other communities did get the political / municipal, provincial, and federal support to have the community center, which we are not seeing for the Black community. Yet, the Black community is being vied upon for the votes. And beyond that, let us not forget there is that underlying crisis that is also targeting Canada regarding the birth rate. But when I say birth rate, it's less of an issue for so-called immigrant communities such as us, Black people, but for the white majority population in regards to the rise of hate and sentiments of the so-called white supremacist ideology of great replacement. All of these issues, will they also be addressed and talked about for a safer, more prosperous Canada? Or will they all be shoved under the rug in the name of the big fear of Donald Trump? I mean, we can talk about tariffs and Donald Trump all we want, but if people can't afford the cost of living, what's the conversation before Donald Trump? So we have to be careful not to mock people's intelligence. And yes, it's elections. People tend to vote more with the sentiments than, let's say, with facts, data, and reason. But that's still not an excuse to take people's votes for granted, notably in the name of playing upon the fears.
So we've outlined the trade tariff, housing. Are there any issues you'd like to see addressed by the leaders during the campaign?
There is an issue that is dear to my heart, which I know they're not going to address it, but it really links into the next topic regarding the Canada-Africa strategy. A Canada-Africa strategy that is not in tune with the reality of African development in a more multipolar world in which the West is being pushed out of Africa further and further. I would be greatly surprised if the leaders of parties talk about Africa. Yeah, they should. They absolutely should. Patient. It's not just about America wanting to get land from Ukraine to explore the rare earth. China is making big moves in Africa regarding rare earth. Israel, Russia with the Wagner Group, the relation. I'm totally mixing in the two topics here, but the relation between the Sahel countries of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger forming a new alliance, rejecting not just France but also the United States, having closed down the bases. And people tend to forget, or most people don't know this with much honesty. Canada may not be per se a colonial state, aka for indigenous people here in Canada. Of course it is. But in terms of globally, people don't think of Canada as a colonial state. But when it comes to mining, Canada is a leader in global mining. So a Canada Africa strategy lacks teeth, lacks funding, lacks concrete measures and concrete metrics. I'm not talking about aid to development. I'm talking about strategic, uh, mutually beneficial partnerships. Notably, as Canada looks to become less dependent upon the United States. But I strongly doubt this conversation will come into the elections. I strongly doubt it.
How much could Pierre Poilievre's alignment in the past with 47 come back to haunt him?
That is, how can I put it? That is the $1,000,000 question. And I say this with, let's go back to January 6, 2021 in the United States. And a year later, we see the Freedom Convoy. Contrast with our black heroes and sheroes who fought for freedom, EEDOM. So here we see a conservative Canadian leader who tried the populist brand, but didn't see 45, the leader of white Western populism, borderline turned against him because of some past comments, and now he's trying hard to distance himself while having lost a 30 to 25 points lead. Absolutely, planning did make a big difference. So the question will notably be, was the sentiment more anti-liberal or anti-Trudeau? Many analysts will say it's more anti-Trudeau than anti-liberal. Let's be honest. During the pandemic, which seems like a long time ago, but it was just 2-3 years ago, truly, those government checks, aka CERB, were welcomed by those who received them for all that they would assure you that they dislike or hated Trudeau, but they didn't dislike receiving the check from Trudeau. So now that Trudeau is gone, and that we have Trump with his tariff conversation, boosting up Canadian patriotism, but also boosting up, as the expected round of tariffs is to come on April 2nd, the price of goods. We have someone like Mark Carney, the current prime minister, but literally calling out for elections. When he not only talks about removing the carbon tax, but also to lower the taxing percentage, notably for middle class families, by 1%, which estimations, I believe, talks about an $850 saving to families. Canadians will go to the elections thinking of Trump, yes, but also thinking about the fridge, thinking about the saving, thinking about the child care for the children. And by here, the conversation won't just be about Jagmeet Singh and the NDP support for dental plans and childcare plans. But in this close election, it becomes a Canada that's multi-party, but really the duality of the two parties, liberal versus conservative. And I give you a very good example also here. You look at, for example, Quebec. You get the Bloc Québécois, which is there to defend the interests of Quebec. But in such a close election, which has seen a rise of Canadian patriotism, a rise of Canadian patriotism is not good for Quebec independence. And the rise of Canadian patriotism usually tend to link in Quebec with voting for the Liberals. A rise of Canadian patriotism in light notably of uh, a fear of America, tariffs, of annexation, also means lesser votes for the NDP, which has seen a shrinkage of intentional voters, and those voters tend to go to the Liberals again. But even many conservative, how conservative were they? Because so many of them, they didn't really have an issue per se with the Liberal Party. They had more of an issue with Justin Trudeau, the son of Pierre Elliott Trudeau, the person that they saw as being white woke. I purposely say white woke to contrast with wokeness from our great African American ancestors. So they had more of an issue with the man than the party. This election becomes much more interesting than we would have anticipated in the fall, in the winter, until January 20th, when Donald Trump came in and started talking about Canada as the 51st state and Governor Trudeau. I mean, Trudeau is living in praise, basically representing Captain Canada. The question is, who will be the next Captain Canada? For Pierre Poilievre, this is a dangerous election because the loss would be historic for him. For Carney, it would be historic as well. An unseated politician coming in to become prime minister. Jagmeet Singh, he tried, but nobody looks at this election thinking the NDP and Jagmeet Singh might win or is going to win. And to be quite honest, Canada is not yet ready, to my humble opinion. Canada is not yet ready for a non-white, notably non-Christian, notably turban-wearing Sikh, S-I-K-H leader. One would think that I would hate to say this. Many would say that's not true. Well, I'm sorry, that is very much true.
Well, we'll be broadcasting all over this election. I'm already going to put it out there for Cesar and some others to come on April 28th, and we'll talk about election coverage. Maybe I'm sure there'll be one or two debates. We'll see if we can get some of our political commentators or some of our good people come on and chat and give their thoughts about the debate. So more to come. Next up, Cesar touched about it, but I think he's going to go deeper dive. Forgotten Black narratives.
Yes, and it's not a long conversation per se. I just wanted to give a reminder to our listeners, to our sisters, our brothers, and their lives listening, not to forget about the fate of Black people who are dying right now in Sudan, and it's not making the news. I'm talking about Sudan, and yet there are fears of a renewed conflict in South Sudan. Terrible thing. North Sudan is already in conflict, the biggest humanitarian crisis going on right now in the world, and talks of a renewed crisis in South Sudan, which, if I recall, the death or the displacement of up to 500,000 people. Next door, you have Ethiopia with probable renewed conflicts in regards to Eritrea and the Tigray region. Congo, which pretty much has been in conflict since 1997, and so-called peace talks between Congo and Rwanda, which has been a supporter of the M23 movement in regards notably to the theft of Congolese minerals, aka Rwanda is listing a production of minerals which it doesn't have in its soil, aka is being robbed from Congo. But by saying robbed from Congo, the Congolese leadership is ashamed. It must be addressed. It is a situation of, when I talk of forgotten Black narratives, as we talked a little bit about Africa, and I hinted a few minutes ago, much respect to the Sahel region where Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger are showing Pan Africanism at the highest level. From the construction of new roads to increase in terms of agricultural production, such as of onions and tomatoes, to create more independence, food independence. You know, you can control the fate of a country with its food. It's not just about guns and, money. The food, people need to eat. But these forgotten Black narratives, of course, we can never forget about Haiti. Haiti, in which earlier this week, the situation in Port-au-Prince, the capital, is being more dire than ever, with the international policemen, greatly from Kenya, policemen and policewomen, I would say, are not succeeding in the fight against the gang leaders. But when we talk about that, let us not forget a crucial question. Haiti is a so-called poor country. These gang leaders, where are they getting their guns from? We know who's the number one gun manufacturer on the other side of that Gulf of America, as he likes to call it. It is a terrible situation in which, for those like me who also watch Al Jazeera, you may see them on the screen, but the fate is never addressed. Black Palestinians. There are Black Palestinians, my friends. So in this conversation, when I wanted to highlight, to remind people about forgotten Black narratives, let us not just talk about, Afro-Canadians and Afro-Americans, Afro-Brazilians and Blacks in France and England in the West. And no, the Black reality, which is notably an increase in Black migration, but truly interracial relationships in China and Japan, aka the birth of Heifu, mixed Japanese and notably Black Heifu, such as Naomi Osaka, and 2016 Miss Japan, who was greatly a victim of racism, Ariana Miyamoto. Let us not forget about the fate of Black people worldwide. The Middle East and North Africa, the realities of racism that are there. And please don't get me wrong. This is not to say that that's the only reality. There are successful Black people on the four corners of the world. I mean, you name that country, you'll be surprised. Yes, there are Black people there. But it is a reality in which we have to be able to denounce the fate that happened to Black people in Ukraine following the invasion by Russia in 2022, in which many African students, but notably Black Ukrainians, biracial/mixed Ukrainians, became victims of racism as they were trying to flee to save their lives. But there are also successful Black Ukrainians, as that wrestler, an Olympian wrestler from Ukraine, whose name I forget. So I want to stress this conversation, as we are in the month of March. It's not Black History Month. It's not about celebrating Black heroes and sheroes. If we forget about Black people that are not often talked about. I mean, who has heard about the fate of Black Palestinians since October 2023, that the Israel versus Hamas conflict has begun? And even Black Lebanese, as there's people dying also in Lebanon. Black Israelis. There are Black people in those parts of the world. Yes, in the Middle East and notably in the Gulf countries, they're afraid of black maids, black house servants. The New York Times, and I thank my friend Rachel DeCoste. She shared an article from the New York Times regarding why are black housemaids disappearing in Saudi Arabia. But I don't think it's just Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Gulf countries. And too often, with the corruption of state officials who enrich themselves at the peril of lives of our vulnerable sisters, but also brothers, who will go to those countries in poverty. Don't get me wrong. I don't want our black people to think every person, either from the West or the Middle East or Asia, who is not black is therefore racist. That is not true. I've had the honor of going to those countries, notably. My God, I was so welcomed in Turkey. I was so welcomed in Egypt. I did not get mistreated in Morocco. But when you come for academic purposes, when you are invited, when you have money, you get treated differently than if you come there in poverty, than if you come there begging for aid and notably crying for religion appeal. So these are part of what I wanted for our people to understand. And as we are in the period of Ramadan, oh, this is a topic that many people don't like to hear about. Every year, Ramadan, the Hajj, the great pilgrimages to Mecca and Medina, the so-called religion of peace that claims not to do racism, and yet some people like to use the excuse of Arab culture. No, no, no. There's racism in all three Abrahamic religions. Let us dare to be brave and bold. When we talk about forgotten black narratives, it is a narrative in which the church, so the biggest Catholicism is the biggest denomination of Christianity. The leader of the Catholic Church gets sick, aka Pope Francis, medicine to save his life. Meanwhile, far too many black people, when they're sick, it is talks of Jesus and Allah chasing away the demons and Satan, change your life, and etc. etc. Yeah, far too many black people will die in ignorance and religious indoctrination, not believing in medical help, modern science, and yes, Western medicine, despite all its flaws and issues, notably scientific racism. I would not be able to see you today, Dr. Vibe, if it wasn't a Western medicine saving my eyesight when I had my eyes crushed at age 18. Neck is usually covered and hiding because my neck is covered in scars. Western medicine saved my life many times. And yet, we are a black community in which far too many people, whether we're talking about cancer, HIV, cardiovascular, and even mental health, far too many of our people, when it comes to those ailments, those diseases, those serious health conditions, the narrative is Jesus, Allah, Yahweh, the devil, Satan, this and that. Sometimes this is this natural, magical thing, etc. Meanwhile, the Pope, remember Donald Trump, he did get the vaccine. So, yes, I wanted to make sure that our people know about that.
Excellent. The Walamala says the Congo is rich in coltan. I don't know what coltan is. Yeah, yes,
Oh.
yes, Colton. Yes, the Congo Rich in Colton. And then Michelle gives the name of the wrestler. I lost it now all of a sudden. Let me just, thank you. There's the name of the wrestler. I won't even try to pronounce it.
Zan Vesanovic Belenyuk.
Thank you very much. Excellent. Excellent. All right. To end it off, we have our latest edition of 47 and Elon. What are your thoughts of their latest escapades?
Discontentment and resentment even, and truly voter remorse is growing in the United States. We cannot dismiss 2 months in. 2 months in, 23, so 2 months in out of 4 years burned. Republican politicians avoiding town hall meetings. AOC, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, and Bernie Sanders having mega rallies. Not just attacking Trump, but also attacking the lack of spine of the Democratic leadership, aka Chuck Schumer, banding without even being asked to band. Hakeem Jeffries, how much power does he really have? States, it's going to be a hot summer. I am scared. Scared is not really a word that I use, but I will use it this time. I'm scared for the innocent lives that might be lost. I'm not a prophet. Prophecy does not exist. Religious superstition. I'm not a prophet. Claim to know the future. Of these 16 or 1,500 January 6 people, but also with Musk and the Musketeers or Doge. What is it? It's not even slashing, chainsawing. Maybe, I don't know if you say that in English, I'm from France. Chainsawing through budgets and departments. It's going to be a hot summer. Spirits will be high. The spirits will be high. And with the tariffs conversation coming, I mean, how much money has Elon Musk lost so far? I was out. Sorry about that. How much money has Elon Musk lost so far? Over $100 million. Oh, billion dollars. According to, I believe, Forbes or Fortune magazine. More and more calls from Tesla investors calling for his resignation, for him to step down, and even that he shouldn't have bought Twitter. The nature of conflict of interest is blatant, as if we are in an African banana republic with Trump, just as, what's his name? Secretary Lutnick calling on Americans to buy Tesla. While Musk also has government contract, notably in defense. I mean, we're talking about Canada being too reliant on the United States. The United States made itself too reliant on Elon Musk. And thus, the power that he is having, but also the consequences that are befalling upon the weak, vulnerable, poor, and greatly ignorant people, far too many of them being MAGA voters who voted for Trump and Musk, who literally voted for these two men who, let us be honest, they didn't make a secret about this. They were not hypocrites. We can We can assign much blame or criticism to them. They were not, I mean, we can argue about the way they're doing it, the way they're going about it. Absolutely, we can. But there were no hypocrites about this. And people are suffering the consequences of the vote for Trump or not having voted for Kamala. And don't get me wrong, as often it is said that American politics, Republicans, Democrats, it's two sides of the same coin. I'm not here to predict the future. I'm not, but I think we can all agree, if nothing, the rhetoric would have been different. The way, the manner would have been different under Kamala. But maybe this is what America needs. America is getting what he voted for. And when you look at, notably, such a thing that happened, the removal of protections for notably Haitian, Cuban, etc. migrants, I read stories of people who voted for Trump and are seeing the spouse, the girlfriends, the significant other being deported to the next level. People who voted for Trump, and even the story of this Cuban voted for Trump and got kicked out of USA. So, literally to finish, it is a conversation in which politics is biting. Politics is truly biting those who didn't take it with the seriousness that they should have had in regards to their very own interests. And the impact is not just being felt upon Americans, but is really being felt globally. Globally, as last time, the canceling of USAID, US aid, causing the death of hundreds, if not thousands of people, notably in Africa. This is not real politics, aka hardcore material weapons politics. This is soft power, the influence, the culture, the image of the country, the aid, the food programs, the health programs. Innocents dying. It's a terrible thing, Dr. Vibe. It's a terrible thing. Allow me to stop here. I'm just mindful of the time.
Well, especially for yourself. One more quick thing. What is your message to anyone who voted for 47 and now says, I didn't expect him to do this?
Well, Dr. Vibe, allow me to quote you from earlier in the show. Something about you reap what you sow. What it is. Action, reaction, actions lead to consequences. And I mean, please, I've said it. And notably, as I'm going to the United Nations in about 3 weeks, I don't want people, the American border guards, to tell me that I can't come in because apparently I am anti-Trump, just like they did for this French scientist for his opinions on Trump. No, I love Donald Trump. 47 is my new favorite number. If I play the lottery, I will play 45 and 47. And if not, I'll even put 49. I love the man. But I said it from the very start on your show. Donald Trump has been great for Black consciousness. He has been great for Black consciousness because he has whipped the minds of many Black people who have become way too comfortable in integration. And the figure as Donald Trump, notably with his past, aka Central Park / Exonerated 5, coming back with birthism and other practices, Hollywood tapes, but also January 6th, coming back to the minds of many Black people that, hey, but more Black men voted for him. They didn't vote for Donald Trump per se. Many of them voted against the Democratic Party.
Or they didn't show up.
Yeah, they voted more against the Democratic Party than they voted for Trump.
Right.
But now, actions lead to consequences, and this is what we're seeing.
All right. That's it for today. Want to say, as always, thank you to Cesar, as always, for taking time out of his positive, productive schedule to share with us. If you want to get in touch with Cesar, email president@rootsandculturecanada is there. And then also Facebook, Cesar Remy Emery. As always, Cesar, thank you as always. Don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember, you and the family to give yourselves grace, and we'll chat with you soon. Take care. All right. Excellent. All right, family. That is it for today. And as always, I want to say thank you for taking the time to watch and share with us today. Let's wind it up properly. Please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. Also, like the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms that I'm on. Email me, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. If you want to get in touch with me, website, the drvibeshow.com, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, the Dr. Vibe Show, Instagram at the Dr. Vibe Show, X/Twitter at drvibeshow, email dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. You can also watch replays of this show on the Dr. Vibe Show, on the Dr. Vibe Show, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn platforms. Also the website, the drvibeshow.com. Want to say a shout out also to Christy White and Kiana Mahmood. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch the show today. As always, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions. Aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace. Hey, if you're not making money, make history, but try to do both. And then finally, make it better. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith, while good, and we'll chat soon.
Just take a quick moment.
Yeah.
You just introduce yourself. Let Dr. Vibe welcome you into the show. As I told you, Dr. Vibe.
No. I welcome. I'm really good to have you here. I didn't want to. You were on a roll. I didn't want to interrupt. You were on a roll, but
in an award created by whites, dominated by whites, run by whites, and you're a billionaire, bro. FYI, I don't. It's probably the first time of the year that I use the word bro.
Yes, it is. That's the first time, as long as I've known you, you used it.
My daughter would laugh.
But for many people, the economy ain't great. There we go. I saw that.